What if the silence was not secrecy, but something closer to fear? Three theories have lived at the edge of what anyone dares to say out loud. That these objects belong to a civilization that was here before us and never left. That they come from somewhere we have no name for, and have been watching since before we had language. That they move through the ocean and the atmosphere by rules we have not learned to read. The government has opened the archive. The United States government released a photograph this year that anyone in the world can view right now without a security clearance. Without a Freedom of Information request, without anything except an internet connection and the willingness to look. The photograph shows the lunar surface is captured during the Apollo 12 mission in 1969. Above the horizon, 5 separate areas have been circled by official government analysts. Each one contains something bright and anomalous. After 57 years, not one of them has been explained. This image is not the strangest thing in the archive. The program releasing these files is called Pursuit, short for the Presidential Sealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters. It launched on May 8, 2026, and in its first 12 hours it recorded 340 million hits. When a government that spent decades insisting there was nothing to see finally opens a door and says, "Look for yourself," people look. But before we reach the moon, we need to go back to 1962.
I have some more of the white particles in view below the capsule. They appear to be traveling exactly my speed. There is one drifting off. It's going faster than I am, as a matter of fact. Roger, understand. I haven't seen the great numbers of these particles, but I've seen a few of them. Their motion is random. They look exactly like snow.
The government officially released that audio recording in May 2026 without comment and without resolution. 64 years after that transmission, nobody has given Scott Carpenter a better answer. A voice from orbit describing the physically impossible. The 2013 file has no location and it has no mission report. What it does have is footage. A military infrared sensor tracked an object for 1 minute and 47 seconds, and the official government description says that object resembled an 8-pointed star with arms of alternating length. At the 10-second mark, the sensor zoomed in. The object began to move. It left behind what the government record calls a visible trail, exited the bottom right of the frame, then reappeared and continued moving until it left through the upper left corner. No agency has claimed it. No explanation has been filed alongside it. The footage sits in the public archive under a single official designation, Unresolved. 7 years later, in May of 2020, a United States military platform was operating over the Gulf of Arabia. Its infrared sensor captured 30 seconds of footage. The service member who filed it gave it a title, Dual UAP. To separate objects, to unresolved signatures, moving through the frame at the same time. What makes this file stranger still is the government's own note that the footage lacks a fully substantiated chain of custody. Even the officials processing the archive cannot completely verify how it entered the classified system. They published it anyway. Then in May of 2022, a Central Command platform captured 5 seconds of footage over the Middle East. The official mission report described the primary object as a possible missile. That sentence was written by a trained military analyst operating under professional obligation, to be precise. Something moving through controlled airspace that could not be attributed to any known actor, filed as unresolved because no one in the chain of command could explain it with certainty. In 2022, a federal law enforcement officer filed a report with the FBI describing an encounter near Colorado Springs, Colorado. The account was detailed enough and credible enough that the Bureau assigned it an official case number. 4 years later, at the request of the Department of War, the FBI commissioned a digital rendering based on the witness's first-hand description. The image shows a disc-shaped object hovering above the town. It is symmetrical and smooth, with no propulsion system visible on any surface. The Rocky Mountains rise in the background. The government published it on a public portal. The case is still open. October 2023 produced 2 encounters that together form the most disturbing cluster in the entire archive. The first is a 43-second infrared video submitted by the United States Central Command, showing an unidentified object tracked over the Arabian Gulf while the sensor follows it across the frame. No explanation accompanies the footage. The second encounter is something altogether different. At a sensitive national security site somewhere in the western United States, over the consecutive nights in October, a federal law enforcement special agent observed UAP activity that was consistent, specific, and prolonged enough that the FBI was commissioned to produce 2 separate digital renderings from the first-hand account. One shows a glowing orb suspended in the night sky above a desert road. The other shows the silhouette of a human figure standing alone in darkness, looking up at that same orb. The government published both images. The figure in the second rendering is a credentialed official witness. What they saw over those 2 nights near a classified facility in the American West has not been explained by anyone since. On June 1st of 2024, the United States Northern Command submitted a 21-second infrared recording of something hovering above open water. The mission report describes an object with a vertical pole suspended from its underside. The official description calls it an inverted teardrop shape with a vertically linear trailing mass. That shape belongs to no known aircraft in the public or classified inventory of any nation currently operating advanced aerospace technology. The crew suggested it might be a reflection from something in the water below. The physics of that explanation do not survive contact with the footage. AARO filed the case as unresolved and moved on, because there are thousands more waiting. And then there is the final document in this sequence. A photograph designated FBI Photo A01. Taken in late 2025 at a location the government has chosen not to disclose. A small, dark, slightly irregular object sits just below the center of a military targeting reticle in a monochrome image derived from a government sensor system. No mission report was provided. No location data exists. No observer testimony accompanies it beyond a single sentence. The operator was unable to positively identify what they were looking at. The government released this image into the public domain anyway, without explanation, as though the act of showing it is the only statement they are prepared to make. What you just read is not speculation. Every case in this sequence is officially documented, officially filed, and officially unresolved. From a voice in orbit in 1960 to a faceless photograph taken last year, the pattern is the same: trained observers, advanced sensors, and no answer. Thank you for watching. If you like, please follow and like.